We are in Lesson 15 in Proverbs chapter 12, down at verse 14 through 28 today. Chapter 12, 14 through 28. We pick up with verse 14 that says, "A man will be satisfied with good by the fruit of his words, and the deeds of a man's hands will return to him." So here, Solomon is saying to Rehoboam a comparison of a man's words and a man's deeds. And it's probably interesting here. When we accomplish good things, good deeds, we also should be pairing up with those good deeds, good words. Now, you can labor and you can labor all day long to help somebody in need, all day long. But if you do not carry along with those good deeds, good words, all the help that you strive to do is probably going to be in vain. I'm going to give you an example, one example. This past week, I was with Roy Gail. Roy Gail was our director of our missions department. And besides doing missions, foreign missions like you and I think about, we also do local missions. And one of Roy's tasks as head of our missions department was to take care or to help other churches and organizations like Crisis Pregnancy, a little church next door, church down here, church there, any organization. I'm a missionary too, a home missionary, but my task is to help people, individuals. And Roy's task, which is now Wade Owens' task, because he's the director of missions, is to help organizations. So therefore, when an organization needed something and they called me, I have no power in my office to help them without going to the mission office and asking permission to help them. And likewise, the mission office cannot help individuals. I help individuals. The mission office helps organizations. I was with Roy Gail, and I said, "Roy, I've got a question for you. Out of all the churches, all these churches that we have helped in the past for about 10, 15 years, we've been helping this little organization, this little organization, this organization, this church, this church, this church." I said, how many of those churches are far better off for what we did to help them? And I'm expecting a glorious answer. I'm expecting Roy to say, "Oh, Brother Jim, about 80% are much better off than when we started helping." That's what I was expecting. I did not expect what I heard. He said, "Brother Jim, out of all those churches we labored with, that we sent people over to help take care of their children while their parents were out doing things in the church, where we sent teachers over, we did this and we did that, and we helped them get budgets together. Out of all those churches that we helped," Roy said, "not one is better off today than they were when we started. Not one." I was blown away. I did not expect that. That is sad. And Roy said to me, he says, "The problem is we went there and we did it for them, and they did not want to do, we did for them what they did not want to do themselves." Did you catch that? We did for them what they would not do for themselves. And then Roy turned around and says, "That's some of our same problem that we have on the mission field. When we go to all these countries and everywhere, and we do for them what they are not willing to do for themselves, we usually end up leaving them in a worse condition than they were to begin with after we leave, because the whole system breaks down. They end up going back to exactly what they were doing before we came in. It's very interesting because my wife's PhD doctoral program, well, she went to the United Way and several of the other places where senior citizens were, and she got permission to come and get them and take them to our private school where they could interact with the kids. And that went on for a year as she did research on the interaction and what the kids did for them and what they did for the kids. And you have to do all the statistical analysis and everything. And then lo and behold, the project comes to an end. And whenever she stopped going to get the senior adults, do you know what the report was that came back to us? The senior adults have entered into this deep and dark depression that is worse than they were before they started doing the program, which led us, my wife and I, to deal with several of the professors talking about what of the ethics of intervening in people's lives and changing their routine and then cutting it off. What does that do for the people that you think you're helping? And Kay had to admit, she thought she was doing something grand and glorious for them, at least for a moment in time. And then what really and truly happened was this deep depression that came along. We can do great and good things. Really and truly what we should be doing, and it matches this scripture, is with all the deeds that we do, we match them with good words or godly words that leads those people to know how to do things to change their lives. Instead of us doing it for them, we talk them through them doing it instead of us doing it for them. Now, you've always heard the adage, all of us have heard, go and fish for someone and they'll just be same way. And then if you teach them how to fish, then they will eat for a lifetime, or teach them how to farm. The interesting thing about that is that is not within our nature to teach someone how to farm. We go and farm for them and think that they have learned how to do it, and they do not know how to do it. I never will forget, after about 2 years of working honeybees, it was my time to go out to a bee yard all by myself. I was all of 14 years old. I was driving. I should not have been driving. Why in the world I was driving, I have no idea. Why in the world my boss says, Jim, I need for you to go out to this bee yard and work these hives and take care of them. And of course, I'm a 14-year-old. I wanted to drive. I didn't think anything about it. I just hopped in the truck and drove. And when you're carrying a load of bees with you, nobody's going to talk to you. The policemen are not going to deal with you with a load of bees. I mean, he just said, always make sure you have some bees with you and you'll be fine. Throw a hive up on the back, tie it down, nobody will bother you. And he was right. But I remember all those days of going out there and watching him pull out the bee frames and shaking them off, looking for American foul brood. If they have it, you do it. You put some terramycin in it, and you do this and you do that, and you check for all this stuff. And there comes a time where you're going, okay, we need to kill this queen. And so we pull it out. The queen's old. She's not laying eggs. You find the queen. You kill the queen. You put the hive back together. And you know what the hive's going to do? They're going to go back in and take some of those eggs, and they're going to start feeding them the stuff they make when they get ready to make it, however God works that out. And it's called this royal jelly stuff, and lo and behold, it's going to make queens. And the first queen out of the little cocoon knows to go around and sting all the other queens so they won't come to life. You got that? Isn't God's nature just interesting? But the point of this is, I had watched him for 2 years do this. Me helping him, me handing him, me being like the dental assistant, handing the stuff. I knew what to hand him. But when I had to go out the first time by myself, I remember spraying the smoke, opening it up, looking, I'm thinking, what in the world am I looking at? I didn't know what I was looking at. I didn't know how to recognize what I needed to do. So I worked all the hives. The next Saturday, Gerald Stroop says to me, of Stroop's Honey, says to me, let's go out and see how you did. He had to rework all the hives. And he had to tell me what I had done wrong on every hive. Because I didn't know what I was doing. I'm telling you something, folks. Until you get out there and get your hands dirty and figure out what you're doing wrong by doing it wrong and somebody come along and then helping you who knows better, you don't learn. And we have to understand many times what we need to do is we need to talk people through things while they're doing it, while you're working it, instead of us doing it and say, see this, da-da-da-da, see this, da-da-da. Yeah. And then they go out there and go, whoa, this doesn't look like what I thought it was going to look like at all. I remember whenever first time I dealt with some people, we were putting in an electrical box up outside, rewiring an electrical box. This is many, many years ago when I was very, very young, putting in a breaker box. It looked simple as pie. Just easy. I mean, as easy as eating a piece of pie. Until I decided to do one myself. It didn't make sense. When I had a master electrician there and I was watching him, it looked perfectly right. But when it was time for me to do it, you have to get in there and you have to take care of business and learn how to do it. Listen, all of our fruit of the good deeds that we do, the true satisfaction comes through when they are accompanied by good words that go along with those good deeds. Verse 15 says this: the way of a fool is right in his own eyes, but a wise man is he who listens to counsel. Here we come up with this foolish and wise theme again. That's what the big words are out there, because we've seen these before. Solomon's trying to explain to Rehoboam that a foolish person cannot see anything wrong with what he's doing. All of y'all have somebody in your family, I promise you, that you can't tell them anything. You cannot lead them in anything. You cannot help them in anything because they know best. They think they know what is right about every single thing out there. And I hope if you're a family of one, you're not the person in your family that thinks you know everything. You might be, but you never know. In fact, sometimes where there's divorces, it's because somebody of the two thinks they know everything. And the other one says, I'm not living with this. This is not who I planned on marrying in the first place. The foolish person thinks they know the answer to everything. They are wise in their own eyes, but a wise man listens to counsel. Now, folks, this spans every area of life, every area of work, every area that we live in, from cooking food to cleaning house to what we do at work to how we interact in relationships to how we go to school to what we go to. It spans everything. The first time you hit a hiccup, the best thing you could ever learn in your life is don't try to create a new wheel. Go find out how somebody has already done it. And if they've already done it, find out if they were successful. And if they were not successful, go find somebody that created a different wheel for this and see if they were successful. And go start seeking the counsel of people who have done these things and either failed or become successful, and find out what they did to do that. Just this past week, some things are happening in the way we're handling these Sunday school lessons and all of that. So I picked up the phone to call somebody who's very successful at that, who is helping groups all over the United States study the Bible and those type of things with the lessons they have. And I said to her, now tell me how you're doing this. And I started asking questions to which she had no answers. No answers. And I finally said, so you're basically, this is just kind of by accident. She said, yeah, we just kind of fell into this, and this is how we do it. And so I explained to them. She ended up the phone call by saying, you called me for help, but you have helped me more than I have ever helped you, because I have already been down the road on some things and talked to some other people about how to get some things done and how to get some promotions done and all this. And it's working, but I was really just trying to get better at what I do. Sometimes we get stagnant in the things that we are doing, and we can all better ourselves in everything. We all need to have continuing education in everything we're doing. We cannot just get a degree from college and say, I've got the degree, and then think you know it all. Because I'm going to tell you something. Tomorrow, something in what you know is going to change, and you're going to be obsolete. But there are many obsolete people out there who think they know it all, and they are not going to jee-haw any other way with it. The wise person listens to counsel. Here's the thing you need to understand. You need to be calling for counsel. Calling for counsel. At every moment, just seek counsel. It may be a dry run. It may be the person you go out and you ask the questions about. You're going to learn absolutely nothing from them because they are just skimming by the skin of their teeth, and they're just doing what they can do to make it, and they've not sought wise counsel to answer their questions. In fact, what happens to me when I start asking questions, and I do it every day of somebody, when I'm trying to learn something more, I find out when I'm asking that person what I'm asking them, I found out the pitfalls in what they're doing that they wish they had the answers for. And so we need to all, I don't care what business you're in, you can still improve yourself, or what relationship you're in, you can improve yourself, or what church you're in, you can improve yourself, or what organization you're in, you can improve yourself by seeking counsel on decisions and things. The problem is, most of us think we've got the answer immediately. Do you know what my experience is this? When I need to do something and I attempt to fix it without seeking counsel, I always attempt to fix it in the hardest possible, the most complex possible way to get it done. And then, as time goes on, he said, well, I could have done it like this. Or I could have done it like this. Or I could have done it like this. Or I could have done it like this. Give you an example of that. Out in the middle of our foyer is the information booth. Those information booths are made out of very dense, heavy MDF particle board, for all practical purposes, glued together. You would think, since there's all these little sections that a couple of guys could go just pick them up and move them, it takes a team of guys. They're heavier than pianos, each one of grand pianos apiece. And so we had to come up a way to move them. So our initial thing was we'd make dollies for them, individual dollies that matched them perfectly. You could run up to them, slide them up on the dollies. Of course, it took 12 guys to slide them up on the dollies, and we could roll them underneath the back of the stage. Well, we tried that for a while, and we started tearing it up, and then we couldn't get them bolted back together. And so we did it another way, and then one day, several of us were out there thinking, there's got to be a better way. There's got to be a better way. There's got to be a better way. And lo and behold, after about 4 hours of throwing ideas out, we thought, what are we doing this for? This is simple. Let's do it this way. Let's do it this way. And so the way that it's set up right now, you can go out there and just move it out and roll it any place you want. But you'd never notice it. You'd never know it. It took us over a year and a half to figure it out. And it was so simple if we had just sat and thought and talked about it from the beginning. But no, we just ran out and spent money and tried to fix it doing this way. And then spent money and fixed it doing this way, and spent money and fixed it doing this way. And finally, we got our heads together, then it came down to a simple way. Things should be simple, and we want them to be difficult. And the wise person seeks counsel in everything. Now, that was a tangible deal, but I'm telling you something else. In relationships, it works exactly the same way. In dealing with people, we always try to fix things complicated, and it should be easy. And we should never think we have the final answer. None of us have the final answer in anything. Well, Solomon actually is going to deal with it. Proverbs 3:7. We've already been there. He says, do not be wise in your own eyes. Fear, that means worship the Lord, and turn away from evil. Don't think, in other words, what he's saying is, for those of you who think you know it all, that's evil in the Lord's eyes. That's what he's saying there. Fear and turn away from that evil. Fear the Lord. Don't think you're know-it-all and you know it all. He goes on in Proverbs 21:2. We're not there yet, but we're headed that way. Every man's way is right in his own eyes, but the Lord weighs the heart. Listen, I'm going to tell you something. We've all been around these people that think they know best. They have the answer for everything. They philosophize about this and philosophize about that. They philosophize about everything till they don't believe in anything. And they think they've got the answers. They sit around and solve the problems of the world, just 4 or 5 of them together every so often, every day or every so often over a cup of coffee. And they think they've got the world figured out, and yet that's just all they do. They just figure out the world's problems and have no effect on anyone. And yet, what you have to understand is, you can think you can know how to fix the government or fix the city or fix anything else. God is looking at what your attitude in your heart is. That's what He's looking at. That's what He's judging you by. Now, you may think you can fool everybody in the world, but you cannot fool God, because God knows everything you think, have thought, and will think. So you better make sure when you spew it out of your mouth that what you are saying is what you really have in your heart, because God is judging you by that. Verse 16, a fool's vexation is known at once, but a prudent man conceals dishonor. Here, Solomon is comparing the difference between a vexation and a dishonor. It's very interesting. Vexation. Vexation means annoyance, frustration, or worry. Do we have any worriers in here? Okay, everybody, you raised your hand, you're a worrier. Everybody that did not, you are not telling the truth, because we worry about something. Now, I'm not going to say we let it kill us, but we worry about some things. Some of you who had a very tainted background, I promise you, you still worry about some of the things you did in high school, some of the things you did in junior high, some of the things you did in college. So we still kind of worry. We should not worry about those things. Once we've been redeemed and claimed by the Lord, we should be over those things, but we are not, because those things of the past that we worry about actually keep us out of trouble today. Do you realize that? Because we don't go down certain roads because of certain roads we went down to, and it did not turn out well. The word vexation means that we are frustrated or annoyed or worry about certain things. The word dishonor means to bring shame or to bring disgrace. Now we got those two words defined, so let's look at this. The fool's vexation, the fool's annoyance, the fool's frustration, the fool's worry is at once known. In other words, if you can think you're a wise person, you can even be a godly person, but you may be foolish in how you express things that you are annoyed by, how things that you are frustrated by, and things that worry you. Are you a person that every time something goes bad or doesn't go perfectly right, you pick up the phone and you have to call somebody? I got to call, I got to tell it. You know what you're doing is you're doing what's called transference. I'm transferring some of my burden to someone else. And you're transferring it over there. And then there's those type of people who are over there being transferred to. They make it their burden to pass on to somebody else, who make it their burden to pass on to somebody else, who make it their burden to pass on to somebody else. And you know what you have is a gossip line going. Gossipers tend to be worriers, all worried about whether somebody else needs to know what they know. You're annoyed by something that's going on. Foolish people will tell what they know immediately. Wise people will hold what they're annoyed by and what they're frustrated by and what they're worried by until the appropriate time, in the appropriate place, with the appropriate people that need to know and can help. The worst thing in the world you can do to people around you is tell people things that they have absolutely no control over, as if they can help you do something. Now, I will tell you this. There are people around you that have control over certain things, and they can help you in these things, but you have to very godly and gently find out whether they can help you. I do what's called, I call fishing. I will call someone when I've got a hiccup going on, something I'm annoyed by, something I'm frustrated by, something I'm worried about, that happens every day, by the way, because something comes up with me that is something that is just really an annoyance or a frustration, and I need some help. I will basically say, Lord, who do I call? Lord, who do I call? And a name will come to me. I'll make a phone call. And I'll say, listen, I'm calling you. Do you know anything about this subject? Do you know anything? If they tell me no, I don't know anything about that, I end the conversation, go on to something else, thank them for the phone call, and go down the road and call somebody else. I don't dump on them the things that they cannot help me with. There are many things we don't need to know. By the way, prayer lists are exactly the same thing. We need to be careful that on prayer lists that we don't dump things on people that they are not aware of yet. Now, all of us have been around church long enough to know that we have had the opportunity to hear somebody get up and pray a prayer, and in the midst of the prayer, they are announcing something that we didn't know until we heard the prayer. Do you know what that does to your praying time right then? It shuts off, puts a barrier up between you and God. You know, I never will forget. I was in the 12th grade. We were having prayer time in the youth ministry. We were sitting there good, and our leader decided that we were going to go around the room, and we were all going to pray for something. And we got to this little boy, he was a junior, and he was all concerned because his sister that was younger than him had gotten pregnant. The first time we heard about her getting pregnant was in the prayer. Do you think I thought about anything else the rest of the time we were praying? There's an appropriate time and an appropriate place to let things out. And what he was vexed. He was frustrated. He was worried about his little sister. He should have told us when we were raising our hands, telling us everybody about prayer time so we could ask a question. You don't interrupt somebody in the middle of the prayer. Go, whoa, wait a minute, I got a question. Now, I'm a guy. I wouldn't have asked any questions anyway, but I'm sure there's a lot of women in the room that they were there that day, like Jim Friedman's wife and some others, Sandy Friedman, some others who would want to go, hey, got some questions for this thing, because we'd want to know what's going on, what we can do to help. But we don't do these bombs on people, which is what foolish people do. Prudent men and prudent people conceal what they have until the proper place. The worst thing a prudent person can do is to be vexed by something and share it. And what happens in that, it often brings dishonor and it brings shame. Now, all of y'all have family. And since you were born until now, you accidentally said something sometime in your life. And it probably wasn't the right thing to say. It might have been true, but it wasn't the right thing to say in the right and appropriate time. Do you catch this? What you're worried about may be true and right, but there's an appropriate time to say it. And you said something in the wrong time. It was still right, but said in the wrong time. And then for every Thanksgiving and every Christmas and every birthday and every 4th of July and every other holiday when the family gets together, somebody in your family brings that up every single holiday about what you said. Do you know any people that are always negative about everything? Always negative about everything. So is 45 years old and her kids are raised and she's now having grandkids. And you say to this person, this negative person, you say, Sister Sally, she has sure turned out to be a great person. She raised great kids and she's got wonderful grandkids. And the person you're saying to says, yeah, but remember, she got pregnant at 17. Just got to say something. Just got to cut a cut. All of us know somebody like that. You're trying to say good words and positive words because they've gotten their life together. Yeah, but she got pregnant when she was 17. What use does that phrase have? She's lived past it, but some people just cannot forget it. Folks, there are some things that we can tuck away that we know about things that happen that we need to look at the positive side and say, yeah, they have made it. They've gotten to this good place in life. He who speaks tells what is right. But a false witness basically tells deceit. Here Solomon continues with this truth and lie deal. Right is right. Right is right. Truth is truth. No matter where it is, right and truth go hand in hand. What is right should never include a lie. If you're telling the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, you should not make up something to go with it to try to make the truth better. The truth is what it is. Let it be. Just let it be. Don't try to add something to it to make it better and bigger and more. Just, it is what it is. Liars purposefully fill every sentence of what they're saying with other lies. In fact, their lie today, when they tell the same story tomorrow, will be a different set of lies. That's how one of the ways you know they're lying. Truth is truth. Just let it be what it is. Just let it be what it is. Turn the page. Verse 18 says, there is one who speaks rashly like the thrust of a sword, but the tongue of the wise brings healing. The thrust of the sword. Doing that with your tongue. Folks, I hate to keep picking on your family, but here's another place to pick on family. I got them, so you should have them too. And I bet you do. You have somebody in your family that no matter what is said, whatever, when you get together at holidays and they walk in, you go, oh. And sure enough, sometime during that time in the family, they're going to say something that just pierces like the tongue being a sword going through your heart. And you go, oh. And you always wonder, who's going to be the victim this go around? It was my turn 6 Christmases ago. Am I back on the firing line? Or are she going to stick the tongue sword through me this time? No matter how nice you are to that person or that guy or that gal, and it was your husband last Christmas, and it was a niece the Christmas before, and at Thanksgiving it was the little 8-year-old. Who's it going to be this go around? And sure enough, you know good and well you're not going to leave that family gathering, be it a family reunion or a Christmas party or whatever, without this person who's got words that just go rash. And you never know where it's going to come from. You'll be laughing. You'll be having fun. Everybody will be joking. Everybody's going along with the joke. And then there it comes. Shoom. You know what I'm talking about, don't you? Yeah, you do. Shake your head up and down. You know what I'm talking about. Does everybody have somebody like that in your family? Does anybody not have somebody like that in your family? I want to see if we got any liars in here. Is anybody not? Okay, we don't. Everybody's hands are down because they're all over the place. And if you don't have one, I'll find one in your neighborhood because you got one next door someplace. And if that's not close enough, you got several in your cities. And we got them all over our governments. All right. The tongue of the wise brings healing. We have to be careful with this, folks, to be wise. Sometimes we think in order to bring healing, we have to bring up what something has happened that is hurtful. We have to be historical. Now, Sister Sally, remember this happened when you were this age, and we watched you do this, and we watched you do that, and we want to help you in every way we can, Sister Sally, to get on down in life and be better, and you're doing good right now. But we think you ought to help with do these things because of all this past history we know about you. Most of the time you need to forget the past history and begin right where you are today. And I will tell you this. Because of the rashness of the tongue that you've probably used in the past, if you even have the opportunity to talk with Sister Sally, will be a miracle. Because Sister Sally's probably been hurt by you and the rash of a tongue stabbing her heart. People don't go to people who stab them in the heart for help and for healing. They go to people they think are safe and love them. Love, love, love. Make sure the things you say out of your tongue are healing things, good, godly things. Don't be harsh towards people. Verse 19.